Hello. The following are examples of how to do the square roots of negative numbers. Look at example A here. We have the square root of negative 16. The definition of the square root of negative A is that it is equal to I times the square root of A. So the square root of negative 16 is equal to I times the square root of 16. Then you ask yourself, what is the square root of 16? That's 4. So that's I times 4. Because the 4 is an integer, the 4 needs to go in front of the I. So that gives you 4I. There's your answer. Let's look and see what happens whenever you have a number under the radical that is not a perfect square. For example, the number 70. So the square root of negative 70, first using the definition of the square root of negative A, that gives me I times the square root of 70. I'm not entirely positive what goes into 70, so off to the side, write down the number 70. What times what gives you 70? Well, the easiest ones I can think of are 10 and 7. 7's prime, so it can't be factored any further. 10, however, is not. Two numbers that can multiply to 10 are 2 and 5. 2 and 5 are both prime numbers. So 70, in its prime factorization, is 2 times 5 times 7. Because we're dealing with the square root of 70, none of those are pairs, which means 70 cannot be simplified at all. So your answer is going to be I square root of 70. Now let's look at letter C, the square root of negative 48. Again, that gives me I times the square root of 48. Again, what is 48? 48 is 6 and 8. 6 is not prime, so that gives me 2 times 3. 8's not prime, which gives me 2 times 4. 2, 3, and 2 are all prime, however 4 is not. So 4 is 2 times 2. Again, I'm looking for pairs. Here's a pair of 2's. Here's a pair of 2's. Everything that is circled is now multiplied together, and everything that is not circled is multiplied together. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Well, that's 2 to the 4th power, which is 16. What I'm left with that's not circled is the 3. So 48 is the same thing as 16 times 3. So we have I times the square root of 16 times 3. The properties of radicals means we can break this up into two separate radicals. That gives me I times the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. Again, what's the square root of 16? 4. So that's I times 4 square root of 3. Notice over here we put 4 before the I because it's an integer. We will do the same thing over here. So it gives me 4I square root of 3. The I should always be before the radical, but after any integers or possibly any fractions. There's your answer, 4I square root of 3.